Honourable Nanaia Mahuta.
Mr Speaker, I stand as a member of the Māori Affairs Select Committee who did not hear submissions on this particular bill, but I want to acknowledge the amount of hard work and effort that has gone into compiling a deed of settlement that was signed last year. In fact, it was the agreement was reached in May last year, so people can see that the progress of the deed of settlement into legislation through the Select Committee process has been quite swift. So that's the first point. And acknowledgement has to be given to Minister Finlayson for progressing treaty settlements in such a way that where there is a sense of urgency from iwi to get things done, and more so in an election year, to give certainty to their ability to take their interests forward. The Parliament surely has played its part in supporting the Minister in that ambition. Mr Speaker, this is one of the types of bills that you would look to the schedules to get a real feel for what it's all about. You will notice in all parts of the schedules, with the exception of Schedule 6, the description of properties that are being returned to the Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu. And when you go through the schedules, you see that there are lakes and streams and conservation bits of land and recreation reserves, scenic reserves, all component parts of this settlement. And it gives you a flavour then of what is it that these people value the most. What is it that they value the most? Obviously, your local connection to your lands and boundaries form a very important part of how you see yourselves continuing to play a constructive role in your community. But they also give a sense of what identity means and what whakapapa links exist for these people within this area. Lake Tūtera, as was referred to by the previous speaker, is a beautiful place. When I was on the campaign trail with Meka Whaitiri, the local candidate for this rohe, she took me past Lake Tūtera and told me some very nice personal stories about the area, but you only needed to look at the place and think, wow, this is a great place to come and stay. It's relatively untouched. It still has the natural preservation of the beauty that we all know and love to be the New Zealand that we want to preserve. And now it has overshadowed on that the opportunity of the local tangata whenua to be able to be active protectors, kaitiaki if you like, of that area. So I want to acknowledge the work that has gone into ensuring that the most precious parts of the natural heritage, the lands, the reserves, the lakes, the streams are included in the settlement, but also that there's an active management instrument tool, if you like, within this bill to give the people of Maungaharuru Tangitu a role in how these lands are cared for. There's commercial redress, which is a component of every settlement, but I don't get the feel that that is the overriding objective of this settlement. And there are statutory acknowledgements and deeds of recognition that make up the component parts of this settlement as well. Mr Speaker, can I step back from the particular and just make this comment with regards to how Ngāti Kahungunu as an iwi has approached its treaty settlement process? The Māori Affairs Select Committee is often challenged with the internal divisions of Hapu within iwi collectives who may either feel disenfranchised from the process or totally disregarded. The way in which Ngāti Kahungunu has approached its treaty settlement process for the land settlements is somewhat different to other iwi. They have enabled pockets of Ngāti Kahungunu to settle their comprehensive claims within their rohe as a unique collective. And if other iwi wanted, I guess, to take the learnings from the whole evolution of the treaty settlement process, I think Ngāti Kahungunu has approached this in a way, given its land mass and its territory, they've approached this in a way that preserves the integrity of clusters of Hapu that have distinct interests in an area that does not take away from the centre, the identity of the iwi, I guess, common identity. So again, this is one thing that I think that if Ngāti Kahungunu has contributed to the settlement space, whereas they collectively advocated for their fisheries interests as a iwi, they enabled Hapu for their land and historical treaty settlements to continue as unique, identifiable clusters of Hapu. And I commend them for that. Because what happens as a result of that is you get Ngāti Pāhauwera, you get Maungaharuru Tangitu being able to argue for the way that they want to approach their unique interests in their rohe and administer those interests. There's one issue that came up, I think, that I could comment on, and it did come up in a previous settlement under the Ngāti Kahungunu cluster, which was Ngāti Pāhauwera. There were people of Ngāti Pāhauwera who felt that they had some overlapping interests in this bill that's currently being considered by the House. To my understanding, and certainly my reading of the submissions and getting feedback from members who were at the Select Committee hearings, while it's acknowledged that there are overlapping interests here, it's not an exclusionary benefit just to the people of Maungaharuru Tangitu. So, for example, if someone with connections to Ngāti Pāhauwera had equally strong affiliations and connections and interests in this bill, they would not be prejudiced or cut off from being able to exercise an interest in this space. I felt it was important to mention that because it was one of the areas where the Select Committee had to consider the extent to which this bill took account of some very real practical issues in the area. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to take too long on this bill. The substance of the issues will be dealt with in the third reading. There were no significant changes to the bill from the way in which it was introduced to how it has come back to the House in the second reading, except for a change and a clarification, a technical amendment to the date. Therefore, the bill is basically presented as it was tabled, with some very informative discussion as to why the settlement has been comprised in the way it has. I commend the bill to the House. I look forward to a speedy third reading. Mr. Speaker, a lot of effort has gone into it. Kia ora koutou.
Mr. Speaker.
Denise Roche.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker. I te whare tēnei koutou katoa. I ngā mana, i ngā reo, i ngā rangatira mā. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I want to acknowledge that for Ngāti Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu, the fog has had an impact on the people who are